Hi, everybody! A golden age is defined as an era where a specific art, skill, or activity is at its pinnacle. For a lot of people, the pinnacle of RPGs, specifically JRPGs, was during the late 90s to early 2000s. During that time frame, you had peak Square Enix with classics ranging from Final Fantasy 7 through 10, and a ton of others. Chrono Cross and Trigger were also hanging around, and some of the best Dragon Quest games, according to fans, released at that time as well. The Lunar games were also hanging around, which were good for the most part. So what's the definition for a Silver Age? Apparently, it's a notable age that is not quite as good as the previous era. A lot of people feel like JRPGs just aren't as good as they were in previous decades. Now personally, I don't exactly feel that is the case because the Legend of Heroes franchise alone feels better to me than peak Square Enix.
Now listen here. You say that your games, the Trails series, is better than FF7 and FF6 and Legend Dragoon and, a shit ton of other titles? No. No. Okay? I took my hard-earned money to buy physical copies, physical medias, of the games I adored. Over and over and over. Okay? I bought them in triplets, I bought them just to be safe, I made sure that I had copies that would work. That's because I don't like doing emulation. I like playing on original software. Or hardware. And, you were saying Trails was better than that? Yeah, no. So, Trails is a good series, don't get me wrong. It's a good series. But it won't top Legend of Dragoon. It won't top Star Ocean's Second Story. It won't top Breath of Fire 3 and 4. Honestly, Trails, I liked it, but it's not my cup of tea. So, other than that, it's up to you, Colin, but honestly, I would much rather my series. Sorry.
Also, the storytelling found in most recent Persona games are top-notch as well. So I feel like this era we're in right now is actually the golden age of not just JRPGs, but RPGs as a whole. Yeah, I know, hot take. My editor can poke some fun at me if he wishes. Anyways, let's get into why we're in an amazing era of RPGs. So I kind of touched on this in the intro. If you compare this era next to the preceding one, which was the hell that was the 7th generation, there were a few standouts during that time frame. Folklore was one, and it was such a unique little JRPG. I'm actually legitimately sad Sony abandoned the second game in this series that was planned for the PSP. Valkyria Chronicles was also another title. However, it's not locked to hardware that's now approaching 20 years old.
I'm old, Gandalf.
But beyond those and titles like Tales of Xillia, the 7th gen was pretty light for JRPGs. The majority of the library was comprised of first-person shooters and third-person shooters, genres of games I'm not super into. This continued into the early to middle era of the 8th generation of hardware. However, once the PS4 was older, it improved massively. It has actually continued into the 9th generation of hardware, albeit mostly through cross-generation titles. However, now that we're entering the 4th year of the 9th generation, we're going to start seeing more actual exclusives for that hardware. Final Fantasy XVI was one of the first major titles for this generation, and has mostly been received well critically, even though it supposedly costs Square Enix a lot of money. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is also a mega exciting JRPG coming out next year. Which brings me to some other games that are upcoming to be excited about. These ones won't be just limited to the newest generation of hardware though. These games range from The Legend of Heroes, Kuro no Kiseki 2 Crimson Sin, East 10 Nordics, Metaphor ReFantasio, Persona 3 Reload, Persona 5 Tactica, Yakuza Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, and the yet-to-be-announced Persona 6, which I think we'll see sooner rather than later. So I've covered some games that have yet to be released, so why don't we take a look at some of the games that came out in the last few years. A ton of really fun RPGs have released in the last few years. On the Western Front, Baldur's Gate 3 released to critical acclaim. Starfield recently launched, and that game has been very divisive, with some people either absolutely loving it and some people absolutely hating it. That's also ignoring amazing titles like Persona 5 Royal, The Legend of Heroes Trails of Cold Steel 1 through 4, plus the Crossbell duology, and Trails into Reverie. When you look at the sheer bulk of amazing RPGs that have come out in the last 5 years or so, you'll notice RPG fans have been eating well. Every year, there's at least 2 to 3 really amazing RPGs releasing. Just from the sheer bulk of games releasing, you could say we're in a silver age. But it's not just the quantity of them that makes this a silver age. We're actually getting a ton of games that are great mechanically. From a mechanic standpoint, I would argue these games are far better than the games found in the 90s and 2000s, which people adore. I adore a lot of those games too, but if I was given the option to choose between eras, I'd choose this one. Why would I opt for this era over the so-called golden age of RPGs though? It's because I can play the golden era games in remastered editions, which is a great thing if you haven't played a lot of them, which until recent years I hadn't. Plus I can also play all of the modern games, which are right up there with the golden era gems in terms of quality. Another thing I have to bring up is these games are more consistent in terms of the quality. While the Golden Age games are top tier quality, if you look at the mid-budget titles, then the quality just wasn't there. Also, indie games were almost non-existent in that era. In the current age of gaming, things have been democratized for smaller studios like Nihon Falcom, or even mega indie studios like Sabotage Studio, Studio Sai, and a plethora of others. This democratization of indie development is actually a good thing for the consumer long term, as it means more niche game genres will actually have their day in the sun, and gamers who enjoy those games won't be starved for choice. I actually think the lack of a proper indie scene was part of why the 7th generation of consoles had fewer high quality RPGs. During that time frame, the popularity of RPGs had waned just like the popularity of platformers had decreased during the 6th gen console cycle. Some would argue platformers have seen a resurgence in recent years off the backs of titles like Hollow Knight and the all-beloved new-aged Metroidvania games. However, if you look at the platformers that are on the market that are beloved, it's mostly Metroidvanias, and 3D platformers have yet to have their resurgence. Basically, on that front, it's a Hat in Time, Yooka-Laylee, and Crash Bandicoot and Spyro whenever Activision Blizzard throws us a bone. That isn't a lot, so I would say platformers have yet to have their silver age. I'm actually working on a video speculating on when we'll see the silver age of platformers. Either way, with the quantity and the quality of amazing RPGs in recent years, we're well into the silver age for the genre. With the way modern gaming is, almost every genre of video game is becoming niche. It's not like the earlier eras of gaming where there were very few genres that were insanely popular, and then anything that wasn't all that popular just wasn't heard of. In the 90s, it was platformers and fighting games and RPGs. In the 2000s, it was RPGs in the early portion and shooters in the later half. The 2010s were mostly FPS games and open world action adventure. The early part of this decade has mostly been dominated by battle royales and open world titles, with everything else becoming more and more niche and laser focused on the established fan bases. This is a great thing for established fans of genres. It can be a little bit hostile for newcomers, however. Since JRPGs have started rising in popularity again thanks to older fans being accommodating for the most part. This accommodation has mostly been facilitated by the advent of live streaming games. Services like Twitch and YouTube has allowed older gamers to share their love for these games, and younger gamers have managed to gain exposure to these titles thanks to that. This exposure, along with the democratization I mentioned in my third point, has really fostered a brand new generation of RPG fans. For these reasons, I feel like RPGs have entered a silver age. I'm going to be releasing a similar video essay on why fighting games have entered a silver age, so keep your eyes peeled for that as well. But what do you think? Do you feel like we've entered a silver age for RPGs? Let me know in the comments section, and don't forget to like and subscribe. 2 of my previous videos will be popping up now. One is a video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy, and the other one is why 2023 is the year of the JRPG. Check them out, and until next time, keep blazing that trail.